Hello, my name is Omar Rampersad. It's 1:46 p.m., February 2nd, 2020. So I decided to live stream this because there is a push from the building in which I live to have me picked up under the Mental Health Act. And this is all part of a conspiracy um, to cover up the trafficking that's going on in the building. So, and it's all part of the experiment that's being run as well. So, let me start with, I haven't live streamed on YouTube before, so it's my first time doing it. So let me start showing you the signals that's coming off my hand here. And these signals is an indication of my being trapped inside of my home and also of being tortured. Because when these signals are high in readings, I'm in pain. So it's similar to 5G being turned up on a high power. So right now the power is not turned up. Well, I stand corrected. The head around the ear. So my ear is hurting. The back of the neck. So both ears are tagged. So it's an on and off. Let me show you the readings here. That is a breakdown of these signals. So this is a cheap detector. It tells you whether it's tagged, your body is tagged, the spots it's tagged in, and there's a scale of 0 to 10, and over 10 it's over limit. So it doesn't pick up, it doesn't give you a reading, I should say, over 10. It just tells you it's over the capacity of the detector to give a reading. It's higher than the scale. So see there, you get a reading, but it's under the threshold for the alarm to go off. So the high RF reading there indicates, and the RF reading is this number right here. Now before I noticed that that number used to be under 1, 0 to 1. And this number was high. But now the RF readings are high. So a different technology is being used. And that's a reflection of, or actually I should say, it reflects the a change in strategy by the people who are holding the contracts to surveil me based on the flag, which are based on lies. And it also shows that the strategy is to increase the power and keep me in pain. So somebody made a decision along the line that more pain is equal to conformity. So if I'm kept in pain, the higher the level of the pain, the more I would be encouraged to conform to what the pimps want. So the pimps are actually the people who are holding the contracts, or they could be subcontractors as well. So there could be subcontractors. So just about anybody can monitor you, quote unquote, which means stalking, basically. It means that you're going to be stalked by just about anyone. So I did a bit of research, and it would seem that people who take these contracts from the cops, once your name is on a list, and somebody flags you, and anybody could flag you for whatever reason they choose, and of course based on lies. Once your name is on the list, people who are on the road constantly can subcontract truckers, um, mail carriers, uh, couriers, taxi drivers, and any service with people who are constantly on the road. So if you are walking or you're driving, you will be mobbed on the street. Um, and just about anyone, if you're in a building, anyone in the building can follow you around. And this program is meant to suppress your voice. So if you speak out, then they call the cops and it's understood that the cops are going along with the agenda because they're taking part, well, not only taking part, they're running the program. Because once you're flagged, then the cops are monitoring you. So if it's privatized, the monitoring, then of course the people are holding the contracts are getting the contracts from the cops. So at some point, like any other city contract, municipal contract, I would think that there is a bidding process where people would have to make a case to get the contract. So a case might be, well, I talk to her 3 times a week. I go to lunch with her. I work with her. I'm her manager. I'm a friend. I'm the nurse who she sees. I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. Anybody who has contact on me with me can hold this contract on me if they so choose. Again, not everyone does it, but people who choose to do it are doing so to take advantage of the setup. Because once you're flagged and you're opened up, they can do anything to you and get away with it because it's all covered, it's all fixed, and that's what it means to be turned out in a society. And this is nothing new. People have been turned out in society before, since human beings um, um, evolved to the point where they could they could think of the scheme of being turned out. This is what has been happening. Um, Anybody could be turned out for any number of reasons. You cross somebody, you're targeted by a group of people, a gang, to be recruited for something, trafficking, to not only traffic human bodies, but drugs, weapons, anything, just about anything. So if you're turned out, then criminals can take advantage of you and it's all covered. So you're a tool, and you're not only a tool for people who want to grow their business and to pass you around and traffic you. You're a tool for criminals. They could do anything with you and get away with it. Because the cops are not going to come after the criminals, because if the cops come after the criminals, then the program that they're running will be exposed and they're taking part in it. So they will not go after the criminals. So the criminals have, a field day on the person. You're criminalized, you're cannibalized, you're used. It's all fixed. It's all covered up and it's all fixed. And people who speak will be disposed of with these signals. It's understood. This is what's going to happen. So with these signals, and I've documented several attempts on my life, heart palpitations, symptoms of heart attacks, and heart failure that was never diagnosed. Doctors are encouraged not to do that because the person is a target. So for me, there is a whole lot of medical history and marks on my skin, and consistent symptoms of being microwaved So microwave radiation sickness basically is what it is. Tons of evidence. I could think of 15 years worth, but I'm sure it was going on before that. Not the radiation so much, but the stalking and the remote accessing. Now, I touched on one point in one of the tweets that I did today, and that is the criminal element that is trafficking, that is behind. Let me focus on one ethnic group, and that is simply because I'm living in it. The Chinese traffickers are trafficking me. Someone named PK felt so safe in soliciting me and sexually harassing me that he even left phone messages. He left messages to this effect. This is how confident that these Chinese traffickers are, that it's all fixed, it's all covered, they could do this and nothing will happen to them. Absolutely nothing will happen to them. So let's focus in, as I said, on the Chinese traffickers. So if you do a bit of research, you'll find out that there's a lot of Chinese expansion beyond China throughout the world. So globally, the Chinese are pushing into, the African continent, the Caribbean countries, other islands around the Philippines and all these places. Poor areas. So what they're doing is, this was discussed in 60 Minutes, by the way. I'm not spreading propaganda here. What they're doing is they're giving countries loans, as in Trinidad, where I was born, and knowing that the country is not being developed in order to pay back these loans. If you loan somebody money, then obviously the person or business have to give a collateral for the loan. Now, if you loan a country money and the country doesn't have any means of generating the income to pay back the loan, then of course the collateral is the country. And this is the tactics that's being used to take over the country by the Chinese. Now, think about covert ways of exerting power over the decision-making process in a country that any colonizing power would want. So think of technologies like demonstrating here, frequencies that could be pumped into your body to cause anxiety, to cause mental degradation of your mental capacity, temporary. It could be permanent if you're hit hard enough and it damages your brain. But these are covert ways of influencing the decision-making process in the political sphere in the country that's being taken over. So, and just a little part of that whole scenario is the illegal activity that these colonizing forces are carrying on in countries like Trinidad, human trafficking being one. Now, Trinidad, I'm not saying that the Chinese brought human trafficking to Trinidad. There's always been human trafficking in Trinidad. However, if you take into account or add the fact the remote technologies as an additional factor that supports the trafficking trade, then you get an expansion of the industry. Remote trafficking is what I'm referring to. So here I am being remotely trafficked. I'm exposing it, but because the people who are responsible for investigating it are taking part, it's not being investigated. Now, I'm in Canada and I have the ability to speak out as I'm doing. And even though there's been attempts on my life, I still I'm able to speak out. In Trinidad, if a woman does what I'm doing, she will be dead in less than 24 hours. Somebody will just walk up to the person and bang, bang, the person will be dead. Because there is all kinds of illegal activity in gun trade in Trinidad. So this is a wake-up call. It's a sobering thought. Excuse me. It's a sobering thought to think that you can live your whole life going about your business and not realize that that you're being trafficked. You're going to notice that you're being stalked and you're going to be harassed, but you'd never realize that you're being trafficked because it's being done remotely and with technology that you're not aware of, not a whole lot of people are aware of. What I'm doing here is exposing the technology that's being used to covertly traffic. So on top of the physical trafficking, and let me talk about Trinidad because I started on that topic, you had to have the Venezuelans coming in and they're being trafficked physically. But the Chinese are doing it covertly. So there's a whole new industry that's being developed. Remote trafficking using these signals. So the person is chosen. They're chipped. You don't have to be chipped, but chips make this sort of training easier to track. And you're hit with these weapons by a manager anywhere you are. And Trinidad is a very small island, so there is nowhere to hide. So, if the Chinese are contracting out these technologies and this procurement process and the training process, they will go out in the villages, send scouts, choose girls, boys, women, men. It really doesn't matter because if the people who are taking advantage of this type of trafficking are sadists and sadomasochists, they're not only interested in sexual torture, they're just interested in torture, period. Sexual torture is just a subset of what they're interested in. These people are sadists. They get off on the torture. They get off on causing pain. They get off on hearing somebody scream. They get off on raping kids. They get off on pain, causing pain to other people. Now, human rights is not a focus of China, as we all know. So if they're not practicing it in China, then why would they practice it? Why would they practice upholding human rights in countries that they're trying to colonize and take over? It's not going to be done, right? So people should be aware of this. What's going on in Toronto is going on in other parts of the world as well. And this needs to be exposed. Again, not only the Chinese people are doing this, but I think, it's my opinion, that the Chinese criminals are bankrolling the program. So they're contracting out to other ethnic groups. So you'd have the Indian groups, you'd have the Black groups, you'd have the Caribbean groups, the African groups, you'd have the Sri Lankan groups, because of course there are trafficking in every single country in the world. Some countries are better, some countries are worse. And we all know that in the African countries, there's a lot of trafficking going on, as in the Caribbean countries and South American countries. So these Chinese quote unquote businessmen, they go to these countries and they spread money around, just use the money, and they develop this industry of remote trafficking that leads to physical trafficking, or is part of it. Now I shield and I talk about it. Now, in my case, I suspect that it was not always about trafficking for me. It was about experimentation and voyeurism. Excuse me, my mouth is dry. It was not always about physical rape in the sense of pointing microwave beams between your legs and simulating that in and out sensation and causing burns and causing irritation internally. It was not always about that. It was about experimentation. It was about brain mapping, I suspect. It was about remote neural monitoring. It was about customizing to other brain, and it didn't matter whose brain it was. Well, I should let me rephrase that. For two people's brain to be in sync, to be entrained, and one person to have control, then that one person would have to know about the program. They'd have to intentionally take part in it. So they'd have to be pretty smart to do that. So that's only one experiment. But this, what I'm dealing with right now, is I suspect the final stage of this whole program, and that is to convert the training that was done subliminally as I slept remotely, subliminally, to convert that training into becoming physical. So then apparently the belief system is, and my face is being pulsed, my eyes are burning, my throat is burning, my mouth is dry. So I was saying, the final stage is to convert the remote trafficking into the physical. So presumably, it's believed by the traffickers that all the training that happened in the last however number of years while I was sleeping has taken hold, and it's deep down in my subconscious mind. And all they have to do is just start the process. So they're trying to get me matched with somebody to settle down, as they say. That is all from conversations outside the window. To settle down with the person, and the person is going to control me, and it's going to be my sexual partner. You could be married. I mean, you could be married. It really doesn't matter. In fact, they would love for you to be married, because then it's really all covered, because your husband has complete control. So this person is going to be your trainer, your manager, your handler, your pimp. Because you're married doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be passed around. And there's another side to this as well. Married people are infiltrated. If you have a beautiful wife, or if the guy is good looking and somebody puts an order in for a gay guy, then they will, and the guy, a husband and wife, good looking man, not so good looking wife, will choose the husband to convert him into a gay person by programming while the person is sleeping, and by other means as well, imprinting. So not only women are being trafficked this way, because there's a lot of gay people out there who are into this. So as I was saying, for me, it's the last stage where I was passed around and raped, quote unquote, by several thousands, I heard. I don't think it's thousands, but you know, this is the number that I hear outside the window to um, to um, to bamboozle me. Um, so now to convince me that and to imprint or to try to imprint that I'm common. There are so many men. They all saw me. They all saw me naked. They saw me in the bathroom. There's nothing left to be seen. And now you may as well be, the point is, you may as well be a real prostitute, a physical prostitute, because now we've painted it, the image. The image is out there, you're a prostitute. Everybody thinks that you're a prostitute. You've been passed around. These men have been seeing you naked as you sleep. They've been penetrating your body with these laser-like technology. They're using haptic technology. They could actually feel your body and they could feel the pressure going in between your legs. And they've been torturing you and they've been living with you for how many years? Since July, I heard Rick was there. This Black man named Rick from one of the workplaces. He was a seed for somebody else who passed me around. And all of this is supposed to be internalized. I'm supposed to be internalizing all of this that's going on externally to be convinced that, oh my God, now all these men did all these things and now you're a real prostitute, so you may as well sell yourself. Settle down with somebody and let him pimp you out. For real. This is the idea. So, of course, that's not going to happen in my case, because the people who are doing this are the criminals, and they also have managers, because this is a scheme that's in a pyramidal structure. So every layer is managed by the layer above. So every person who had the link of the password to me is also raped and passed around, because this is the nature of the organization. This is part of the organization. This is the understanding of the person who chooses to be a master. The master have a master. So the idea is eventually everybody is going to be passed around this way. And I heard this is part of the New World Order agenda, and it's based on a satanic agenda, which makes everybody common to everybody else sexually. So, you know, if there are hundreds of men out there who have the link of the password, then they should keep in mind that they're also being passed around and remotely raped. And if you had cancer and you had your prostate taken out, I heard a Muslim man who was a steward had cancer. I had anyway. Let me not say that. But there were several people who lost their voices, had cancer in the throat because they were telling lies. Took out their prostates. Couldn't go to the bathroom and urinate. Had operations because they chose to take part in the program. And once you do that, then you cannot talk because now you're a criminal and you're a rapist. So what does a criminal organization do to recruit? They criminalize people, have something on them to blackmail them, to shut up, and then they pull them in, right? So they entrap them, tell lies to them, entrap them, make them do a criminal act, criminalize them, then hold a threat. I'm going to go to the cops about you. This is what you did. Pull them in and make them even more criminal, part of the criminal gang. And this is the tactic that's being used. This is the tactic that's being used by the gang stalking and the trafficking groups, the Chinese being a major, major player in the field. So there is no emergency here, obviously. I am not a prostitute because the whole world could see me naked and the whole world could send signals between my legs as I sleep at night. Or when I walk the street, and yes, it can be done when you walk the street or sit on the bus. That does not make anyone, it does not make me, and it doesn't, if it's done to other people, it doesn't make anyone promiscuous or a prostitute. It does not make the victim a criminal. The people who are perpetrating the crimes are the criminals. There is no internalization because it's just the opposite is true. However, if this program is run on a naive person, adult, or a child, then the child will internalize it. 99.999% of the time, a child will internalize this program and become a prostitute. There'll be no internalization here. None whatsoever. I went through the program. And when I started realizing, after doing some research, that covert means were being used, like these signals, and started to realize how complicated and how intricate the program was, I started to realize how intelligent the people behind it was to put together the program. And they did it in such a way that when somebody talks about it, people are not going to believe, or they're going to be too scared to believe. They're going to say, their minds are going to just block it out because the satanic nature and the diabolical evil that underlies this program, for some people who has been living their life normally, not being aware of any of this, for that person to absorb this is going to be sometimes almost impossible. Their minds are going to block it. They will not accept that it's going on. And what I'm talking about is just the tip of the iceberg. If you do a bit of research and you get into the rabbit hole, as I call it, this rabbit hole goes very, very deep on many, many levels. It goes right back to, if you dig deep enough, this rabbit hole goes right back to the Eastern philosophy and all the knowledge that we as a human race have used, instead of good, being used for just the opposite. We have the knowledge, we have the technology to eradicate every single disease known on Earth, to feed every human being, to shelter every human being, to manage our populations, and to save, manage the Earth, and to protect our environment, protect our air, water, and live a very, very high quality of life on all levels, where everybody could reach their potential on whatever level that is. And we can have peace on Earth. We have the capacity and the ability to have peace on Earth. But what's happening? Just the opposite. All we have to do to create that peace is not allow ourselves to be bamboozled. Just don't internalize the crap that's being thrown at you. Just learn to think for yourself and listen to your conscience. Because our conscience is connected, as Deepak Chopra talked about, and I'm paraphrasing. I'm not saying exactly what he said. This is my understanding of what he said in one of his lectures. Your conscious, your sense of right or wrong, and your conscience, as they say, is connected to a greater sense of right and wrong, the universal consciousness, which operates on the universal truths. Just listen to your conscience and go by your conscience and not believe the crap that's coming at you through all the avenues, through your cell phone, through your TV, whatever. Select what's coming into your head. Be discriminating and what you internalize. And none of this crap, all that is going on around us, is just going to disappear. We are just going in the wrong direction. I mean, it's painful, spiritually painful to see what's going on with our world today, because we have the ability, the technology, the capacity to do just the opposite of what we're doing to a world and to people. We don't need robots. And by that I mean, we can use robots to do our work and our manufacturing and whatever. But we don't need a chip in our spinal cord. We don't need a chip into our inserted into our brain. There are other ways of going about this, of elevating our consciousness. Anyway, so let me just stop talking. It's 38 minutes. So again, for those of the people, perpetrators out there who are constantly calling the cops, I heard it's no longer counter-indicated because there's an experiment being run at 25 Bamberg Circle in Toronto. And of course, some of the residents are taking part in it. It is no longer counter-indicated, come and pick her up. Well, here's your counter-indication. This is a counter-indication if you're running this experiment. There is no emergency. What's going on here is shouldn't be happening to anybody. Human beings or any other species that we experiment with. So I'm just going to stop there.